Roundball Roundup on UtahJazz.com. JP Chunga here with the head coach of the Utah Jazz, Will Hardy, taking in some mountain views. Pretty cool.
Never gets old.
When you came here as an intern, Ryan Smith put this on social media, did it take a little bit of time to get used to the mountains and all that this place is about, the views, the scenery?
Yeah, I mean, this is very different from where I grew up. I grew up in Virginia, where, you know, the Appalachian Mountains are in the western part of the state, but that was not like a part of my life. You know, to be able to just like turn around and see a view like this. You know, Virginia's pretty, it's green and has 4 seasons, but you're not getting any type of wow factor when you just look around like you do here. So yeah, coming out here that summer between my junior and senior year of college, it was definitely a shock just to kind of see the city kind of set right into the mountains, how close it is. You know, because like other places you go, like even Denver, for example, like the mountains are an hour away, 45 minutes away. So yeah, we're spoiled to have it all right here, but you know, at age 21 when I came out here, it was definitely a little bit of a shock for me.
This place is so convenient when it comes to switching up where you are. You could be in the desert 15 minutes that way, you could be in the mountains 30 minutes that way. It's interesting that you can have this hiking and everything around it and also have the city in it.
Yeah, I mean, whatever you are into, there's a good chance we can provide it. You know, I think the blending of the city being here, and then, you know, there's always all these conversations about the outdoors and being in nature and what that can do for your mental health and all those things. And I mean, 15 minutes away from where we're sitting right now, you can be in the middle of the canyon with no cell phone service, totally detached from kind of your day-to-day life. And you can get that separation, and then you jump back in your car and you're 15 minutes and you're right back at it. I think that to me has been a huge blessing. I've used the mountains and hiking and the canyon as a place where I can just kind of get away, even if it's for an hour and a half. You know, my phone doesn't go off. I don't even have the temptation because there's no service. So, yeah, we're in a really unique place in terms of what your day-to-day life can actually be. I think it probably takes a lot of people. It took me a little bit to adjust to that because your brain's not used to thinking about those things as like a possibility. But I think it gives you a very different version of kind of like a work-life balance if you want it.
What was it like to get up there with Lauri?
Man, we had a great day. The weight vest, you know, I'm glad that I don't weigh 20 pounds more than I do at the moment. It was definitely an adjustment. Lauri's really pushing himself this offseason. We had some segments, I think they only showed the very end where we got to the top, but we probably ran for the last 5 minutes.
Well, the camera people had to run with you too.
Yeah, we had some, there was some medical attention that was almost needed for some of the crew. We won't name any names, but Carlos had a moment there.
I felt bad for them.
Yeah, I did too, because I felt bad for me at moments.
Right.
I was like, because I'm trying to keep up with Lauri. But we had a great day. We talked about a ton of different stuff, but I think it was fun to do that with him. And then at the end, when he was trying to sort of push his conditioning and he took off running, it was one of those moments where I didn't want to do it. I thought about stopping a lot, but we pushed through and got it done, and had an opportunity to hang out at the top and take a few photos. It was good.
You're wearing the new gear.
I am.
What do you think of the new look mountain basketball for the Utah Jazz?
I'm a huge fan. I think the purple obviously is something that we're leaning into. I love the black jerseys that we saw. I think the white ones are really clean. The other piece that I think is awesome is this sort of baby blue accent color coming back. I owned a pair of Jazz shorts in high school.
Baby blues?
I had the baby blue ones.
Nice.
The Darren Williams baby blues.
Yeah.
They were sweet. And so it's cool to sort of see some of those uniforms kind of blending with the purple and the baby blue. I think they look great. I've actually gotten stopped by a couple of people in the last week, and they have said to me, without me asking, that they're really excited about the new uniforms and think they look great. So I think they're getting a really good reception from the fans also.
I'm glad that the baby blues being embraced again, because that's the era that I grew up watching.
Yeah.
Darren Williams, Carlos Boozer, AK, Memo. Those are the guys that I grew up with. Looking at the team last year, what did you learn, though, year 2 as a head coach and trying to figure out the group? Because there was a point during January where you guys were playing some pretty good basketball.
Yeah, I think we had gotten ourselves to a pretty good place in January, and we had added some new faces. Obviously, we had a rookie in Keontae who had, made a push in training camp and was a part of the rotation. We bring John Collins in, and we're trying to acclimate him. And more than acclimate him, I needed to continue to do a better job of figuring out how to use him best. John's got a wide-ranging skill set and is a really good player. And so it took me a minute to sort of figure out how he best fit and how I could best use him. But I think, for me, the biggest learning was that it's always going to be a living, breathing thing, the team. Whatever you think in the summer, whatever you think going into training camp, you have to have the ability to change your own mind, to disagree with yourself, to say, hey, what I thought was going to happen or what I thought was going to work is not. And that doesn't mean that you're flimsy, but you have to be able to recognize the moment when the team, the game, all of it is telling you, like, this isn't it. My first year, I felt like I was really in that mindset the entire time because I was a new head coach, and I sort of gave myself this grace of like, hey, you don't really quite know what this is going to look and feel like, and so take it as it comes at you and be willing to change a little bit. Going into my second year, I took some of the things I learned from the first year, and I went into it thinking, okay, like, I feel firmly about this and I feel firmly about that. And I learned quickly again that you'll be right about some of that stuff, but you have to be willing to change. And I think going into this next year, that's going to be, the number one thing for me is, while we're trying to establish an identity as a team, as a program, I still have to keep my flexibility as it relates to how our players best fit together, our style of play on both sides of the ball, and that's ultimately what's going to give us the best chance to compete for what we want.
Was there a moment that you can point to where you did change? I even think to when you guys had preseason, you played the 4-guard lineup, and then you immediately scrapped it. You were humble enough to do that sort of thing.
Right. Yeah, that's one of many examples of it makes sense when I explain my reasoning. It makes sense maybe in a practice setting. You see the good in it. Like, I try to look at all of our players and our team for like what they are and what they can do and what they can bring. I generally don't try to think about like what they don't do, if that makes sense. And so I think with that 4-guard lineup, for example, like, I saw what were the potential positives of it. And yeah, it didn't play out at all how I thought, and it was pretty glaring and for a lot of reasons. And so I just immediately had to make the decision, like, hey, that thing that we worked on for 10 days, it's not going to work. And that's okay. And we just moved on to the next thing. I think there were some times where I felt certain lineups were going to perform better than they did, and you get in the game and you see it, and you have to be willing to see the trend. from a stat standpoint, people are always going to talk about sample size, like, oh, we haven't seen enough of it to really know. But that's why we have jobs. We're not just waiting on the sample size to get to a certain point. You have to have the feel to be able to look at it, talk to the staff, the trend of it all, and just go, maybe that lineup shouldn't play together anymore. So yeah, there were a bunch of moments this year where I had to be honest with myself that things that I had worked hard on and prepared a lot on didn't work the way I thought they were going to. I was willing to change.
How did you change your thinking on Collin Sexton? Because you had an amazing quote before, I believe it was Indiana in January, about how you changed in the way that you viewed him and what you thought about him preconceived before you actually saw him on the floor.
Yeah, I fell victim, like we all do, to narrative, to things that other people say. Like I've said before, it's if you were going on a date with somebody, you wouldn't call their ex and ask about them. But that's what we do in the NBA. The guy comes from a team, people on our staff call people on their staff, friends of theirs, and go, hey, what's this guy like? And you get this very cluttered, whether it's true or not, it's their version of the truth about the player, and then that seeps into your brain, and so you're already looking at them through a certain lens. And Collin's taught me a lot. He's taught me how to let go. He's taught me to continue to lean into like what somebody does well, what their positives are, because he's a really productive player and he cares as much as any player I've ever been around. Works extremely hard. He's very coachable, very respectful. But like he's had as much of an impact on me as any player that I've ever been around, because he like really kind of put the mirror up to me, where I had to have a moment of like, dude, you're the problem. Like these things are going to happen. You know who Collin is, how he plays, and then you're shocked when he plays like that. And it was creating tension that was unnecessary. And so, Collin and I have a really good relationship, and we have a very good understanding about kind of what the boundaries are. And, I think I did a much better job as the season went on of giving Collin some breathing room. And then Collin continued to do a good job of when I was really frustrated or really upset or I felt something really needed to change and I got on him hard, he was great about it. And so that's a credit to him. Like he never held it against me, kind of the early stages of our relationship. Not that it was ever bad, but I was probably overly critical of Collin. And so he let our relationship evolve as well. I had to have enough self-awareness to say like, hey, in this case, like I'm wrong. And I need to continue to do what I say I do, which is focus on the positives of the players and try to maximize that piece. And we'll try to tidy up and clean up all the other stuff at practice and in the workouts. But in the game, we all want the same thing. We all want to win. And there's moments where I have to really coach and I have to direct and guide and lead the team. And there's also part of my job where I have to get out of the way and let them do their thing.
Did you coach Collin to follow Jalen Brunson into the tunnel?
So Collin has a free spirit, and he maybe took the box and one instructions too literally. And he did take Jalen Brunson into the tunnel, which is the first time I've ever seen that. I think everybody was shocked, including Jalen Brunson. Yeah, that was an all-time moment
That's
this year for me.
That's following a game plan, though.
Yeah, sure. I think that's where, yeah, Collin, you did what I said. That's not exactly how I meant it, but it was a good win for us.
It was.
Yeah.
Yeah, early in the season. December, I believe.
Yeah.
When you look at having so many rookies on a roster and trying to challenge each individually and trying to see all of them grow, How do you feel that things went for them during the season and where they ended up at the end of the year?
I think the most important thing is that they all ended up, when the season finished going into this summer, they learned that the NBA is really hard. Each of them in their own way. Keontae played for most of the season. He was coming off the bench a lot, playing 20 to 23 minutes-ish, sometimes a little bit more if he was playing great. And then his role changed late in the year, and he was a starter, and he's getting more of a primary defender on him, and he's getting more of a game plan, and he finds out how hard it really is. Bryce and Taylor had an amazing season in the G League. They got better. They worked really hard. Wojo did an incredible job with them. And then when they came to us, they're thrust into the starting lineup. And it was a massive change in level. And I think they got humbled a little bit in a good way. And it's driven them into this summer. I mean, I wish everybody could see the work they're putting in every day. Like, those three have been in the gym constantly. And, you know, the thing I'm most proud of is their bodies look great. They understand the length of the season now, the wear and tear, no matter how old you are. They need to get stronger. They need to get faster. They need to become more durable. Their conditioning can improve. And the three of them have all leaned into that. And that only happens by playing in the games. It's one of those things where it's like, you can warn them as much as you want. You can tell them it's going to be hard. You can explain all those things, but these guys have been the best players in pretty much every basketball game they've ever played in their lives until they get here. And so getting that game experience, feeling it in a way that I can't explain to them, has given them an opportunity to have a great summer.
What benefit can Taylor and Bryce get from playing in Summer League this year?
I think it's, number one, can't replicate a game. There's no workout. There's nothing we can do in our gym that can replicate a game. Secondly, it gives them an opportunity to be a little bit more primary in those games. When they play with our team, let's say they're on the court with Lauri and Collin, and they may not be as primary as they will be on the Summer League team. So I think it's an opportunity for them to get game reps at some of the things they're working on in the gym now, which is really important for them. They have to get a lot better, and they know that, and they want that. And so this is an opportunity to play and go compete. There's no reason not to take it. What's
the benefit for Walker, who at the end of season availabilities you identified as someone who would also be at Summer League?
Yeah, same thing. It gives Walker an opportunity to be a little bit more primary. It gives him an opportunity to be a little bit more aggressive. You know, Walker is a really smart, conscientious kid, and at times that can make you a little careful, especially when you're not getting a ton of opportunity, like on the offensive side of the ball, for example. And so I think this will give him a chance to kind of breathe a little bit and let it rip some. And that's what I'm hopeful for him, is that it's just some game reps where he can be really, really aggressive and not have to worry about only getting 6 or 7 shots. The hope is that he gets a lot of opportunity in these Summer League games and is able to, similar to the rookies, start to get some game reps, some things he's been working on.
How do you go about helping him after a really standout rookie year and see how he did his second season and try to get that confidence built right back up?
Yeah, we just try to shorten the view. I think players, humans, you know, we're all sort of conditioned to like think about how it's going to end, and like how successful am I going to be or not be, and like what's it going to look like way down the road. And so I think in order to get that positive momentum back, it's about shortening the view and just saying like, hey, I want to have a great summer. Let's not worry about next season yet. Let's not worry about the next 3 years of your life. Let's not start thinking about, you know, at the end of your career, what do you want it to look like? It's when you come to training camp, if you've accomplished these 5 or 6 things, it was a great summer. And I think by kind of like knocking down some of those little victories and checkpoints along the way, the confidence will come back. I mean, he's already in a really good headspace. He's also been really focused on his body this summer. But I think he knows, we've put together a really clear plan for him and met with him, and he gave us some feedback on some things in the plan. We want it to be something that he feels like he has autonomy over and is invested in. So, we had a really good meeting and went through the plan, and he knows and understands what the goals are for the summer.
Inside 2 weeks from the draft, being involved in that process, what do you want to hear from some of these rookies? What do you want to learn from players that will be coming into the NBA next year?
Yeah, I'm interested in who they are as people. Justin and his group and Danny, they do such an amazing job of the talent evaluation. So they give me a smaller group of guys to focus on and watch film. But, whenever I meet with these draft prospects, I'm interested in getting to know who they are, what makes them tick. Do I think they're going to be able to adapt? Do I think they're going to be able to change? Do I think they're willing to change? Are they willing to be coached? Do they have some mental toughness? Are they going to be able to push through failure? Like, they're going to fail. Every rookie, every young player has a moment of doubt where the NBA humbles you and you start to think like, oh my gosh, am I good enough? And so it's kind of just starting to see who they are as people, because ultimately that's what we're doing. We're betting on people and human behavior, which is tough to predict when they're 19. But I do think that when you sit down with somebody and you look them in the face and you get to have real conversation with them or share a meal with them, there's some things that will jump out pretty quickly.
Is there a go-to question that you ask?
No. I research them a little bit before I meet with them, just to kind of learn about their story. But, I usually try to start with something pretty broad and let them talk, try to listen to them, and then we go from there. For me, it's always trying to steer the conversation to a place where they're speaking about something they're interested in. That's when you're going to get the most out of them. It's what you do for a living, JP.
You do it too. You did Shoot Your Shot.
I think it was Shoot the Shot.
Oh, my
But
bad.
No, it's okay. Branding.
Right.
It's fun. Like, you want to give them something and just let them go. And so that's where the research kind of kicks in a little bit. I'm always getting information from our front office on these guys and where they're from, kind of their backstory, if they played other sports, if they have interests outside of basketball. But they're all it's amazing to me how sharp and mature and ready for some of this media attention that this generation is. It's crazy.
I would not be ready for it.
Yeah,
if
you had talked to me at 19, I would have been a disaster. Yeah. And they're just, I don't know if it's because of social media, because of, the YouTube videos, the highlight videos weren't even a thing when I was in high school. It just wasn't even, there's so much access to these kids at a young age now that you meet them and you're like, wow, you're 19, that is crazy to me. They're all really, really impressive.
Yeah. Are you watching the playoffs?
I am.
Seeing these two teams right now, as we're recording, it's 3-1 Boston. Having your experience with the Celtics, what were the indicators that this team not only could make a deep run, but could make it again to the finals where you were last time that you were coaching them?
They've got really, really high-level players. They have so many guys that can dribble, pass, and shoot. Defensively, they take such pride in guarding the ball. There's so many possessions that you watch, and there's no scheme needed. There's no rotation needed because they just guard the ball. Joe is an amazing coach. I think he does such a good job of putting them in like a very clean game plan where they know what they're supposed to do, and then he's really good at adapting in a game. I think they've shown as a team over the last couple of years the ability to change defenses on the fly, change coverages, change matchups because of their versatility, their size, their physicality. So, when you couple those things with their offensive firepower, their ability to shoot the ball, their ability to drive the ball one-on-one, and then, they're a really high-level decision-making team. I think it was pretty clear early in the season that they were the best team in the NBA. And a lot of credit to them and Joe and his staff for how they've maintained that focus.
Well, they're on the precipice. Dallas went through a really impressive Western Conference run to get through to the finals. Did you see this out of them? They clearly have one of the best players in the world with Luka Doncic.
Yeah, it's hard to say if I saw it. We didn't get a ton, when you only get a small snippet of the season after the trade deadline, P.J. Washington and Gafford have had a really big impact on their team. There's no doubt about that. But I also think you see Luka is just unbelievable. Kyrie is mesmerizing. Like, those two guys are playing at such a high level, and when you couple that with role players playing well, I think that's something that stands out with both Dallas and going back to the Boston question is to win the whole thing, you have to have role players play well.
Yeah.
And it can't just be the star players. And both those teams have that. Did I see Dallas coming out of the West? Maybe not. If you had asked me at the beginning of the playoffs, that may not have been my pick. But if you had asked me, why would you bet against Luka and Kyrie and, Jason's a great coach, I would have said, yeah, I don't know why I would say that. So I may not have picked them, but I'm not shocked.
You're going to be busy after Summer League, after things continue in this offseason, working with USA Basketball.
Right.
What's that role going to be like for you, and what are you looking forward to getting with that group?
Yeah, Steve invited me to come be around for training camp, be with their coaching staff. So I'm just excited because I love USA Basketball. I've had such an amazing experience with them in the past. To get to be around the best players that we have, watch them up close, learn from them up close is always a special opportunity. Also, like, those coaches meetings are like pinch me moments for me. When you look around the room and you're like, this is the room of coaches that I'm sitting in, and we're bouncing ideas off each other, and you're listening to Steve and Eric Spoelstra and Ty Lue and Mark the list goes on. When I was on the staff, it was Jay Wright, and Steve was on that staff as well. Ime, Lloyd Pierce, like, we just had such a great staff that you're learning so much from all these coaches that you've studied from afar, and you watch them on film, and we're all competitive, but you have such like a deep level of respect for who these people are. To be in a room where you're all kind of like working at the same thing and throwing ideas out there, I just look forward to sitting in those meetings and trying to soak it all up. That was my approach when I was on the staff the last time, and to get an opportunity to be there for a week with them this summer is really special.
Do you get to pull a coach that you've admired from afar aside and get like basketball sicko brain on with them and talk about a specific thing that you really appreciate about what they do and what they coach?
Yeah, we get in the weeds.
Yeah.
In a fun way. Like, we all sort of get to nerd out on basketball a little bit. But yeah, like, there's so many things to learn from all these coaches that I find myself asking a ton of questions. The one-on-one conversations are always fun. When we go to dinner together at night, those conversations are great. because a lot of those coaches, that I just named, like they have been and have accomplished things that I want our team to accomplish. And, I was fortunate in San Antonio to be a part of a championship and was there for 11 years with Pop. And then you get around coaches like Spo and Steve Kerr and, their championship coaches, and they do it a little differently. And Jay Wright, obviously his resume speaks for itself in college. Like, he does it a little differently. And so you get to see and sort of pluck little things from these coaches. And then I try to frame it against like my own personality and who I am. And, I'm still always trying to sort out, exactly who I am as a coach. Like, I'm not a finished product yet. And I think that's a strength. But, I'm still in learning mode, like massively. And there's so much to be taken from asking these guys questions, but there's also probably just as much to be taken just observing them up close.
One show you observe, Arrested Development?
Oh, my favorite.
I want the Mount Rushmore of Arrested Development bits in your mind.
Bits?
Bits. Chicken dance.
The chicken dance is a classic.
Gene Parmesan's my favorite.
Yeah.
J. Walter Weatherman, that's why you always write a note.
I like There's Always Money in the Banana Stand, too.
Okay, yeah.
That was a classic.
Yeah.
And there's something about Job sinking that boat. It just will always make me laugh. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, Will Arnett is one of my all-time. The guy just makes me laugh. They're why I listen to Smartless, him and Jason Bateman. Like, I've just been such a fan of their sense of humor forever. Arrested Development, maybe my favorite show of all time.
So you named Job. There's nothing else that stands out as far as bits? That's it?
God, there's like too many to pick from.
Tony Wonder?
Dude, would you like prep for this? You just watch all the
No, I watched a lot of Arrested Development as a kid. That was my go-to show in high school.
Really?
Yeah, oh yeah.
I did not see that coming. You have a great sense of humor. I didn't know you were...
And Curb. That and Curb.
Yeah, Curb is special.
Yeah.
There's a lot of Curb bits that we can't talk about in this podcast to get us all tied up. But man, I know what I'm going to do tonight.
All right. He's the head coach of the Utah Jazz, Will Hardy, on Roundball Roundup on UtahJazz.com. Will, thanks
bro.
so much.
Appreciate it.